What if I told you that the water you're paying premium prices for might actually be coming straight from the tap? Behind the pristine mountain images and promises of purity, there's a disturbing truth the bottled water industry desperately wants to keep hidden. Independent investigations have uncovered shocking evidence. Nearly 40% of bottled water sold in America is nothing more than municipal tap water, repackaged and sold at a 2,000% markup. That refreshing bottle you trust, the one you reach for instead of your kitchen sink, could be the exact same water, just in plastic. And the most alarming part? Some of the biggest brands on the shelves are at the center of this deception. Stay with me, because I'm about to expose 7 water brands that will change the way you look at every bottle you buy. And when you hear the last one, you'll never trust bottled water the same way again. Aquafina, owned by PepsiCo, is one of the best-selling bottled water brands in America, with annual sales exceeding $1 billion. For years, the bottles featured images of mountains and pristine wilderness, leading millions of consumers to believe they were drinking pure, natural spring water. But here's what PepsiCo didn't want you to know. Aquafina isn't spring water at all. It's public tap water. In 2007, corporate accountability groups forced PepsiCo to add a tiny disclaimer to their labels, PWS, which stands for public water source. But even today, that label is so small and obscure that consumer surveys show fewer than 15% of buyers actually notice it. The rest continue believing they're drinking something special, something purer than what comes out of their own faucet. But the deception runs deeper. Independent testing by the Environmental Working Group in 2023 found that Aquafina's purification process, which the company heavily advertises, doesn't remove all contaminants. Samples revealed trace levels of disinfection byproducts, specifically trihalomethane, compounds that form when chlorine used to treat municipal water reacts with organic matter. While these levels technically fall within EPA safety limits, the disturbing part is this. You're paying $1.50 per bottle for water that's no cleaner than what flows from your tap for fractions of a penny. The economics are staggering. According to industry analysts, PepsiCo's cost to source, filter, and bottle Aquafina is approximately 0.03 cents per liter. They sell it for an average of $1.29 per. That's a markup of over 4,000. In other words, you're not paying for superior water. You're paying for marketing, branding, and the illusion of. When confronted by journalists of Consumer Report, PepsiCo representatives insisted their purification process makes Aquafina different from tap. But water quality experts from the Natural Resources Defense Council have stated plainly, if you live in a city with well-maintained water infrastructure, your tap water is often cleaner and more rigorously tested than many bottled brands. So why do millions of Americans continue buying it? Because the packaging works, the sleek bottles, the mountain imagery, the word pure printed in bold letters. It all creates a perception of something better, something safer. But strip away the marketing, and you're left with tap water in a plastic bottle, sold at a price that would make any con artist jealous. And if repackaged tap water wasn't disturbing enough, the next brand on this list reveals something far more dangerous. Because this time, it wasn't just misleading marketing, it was actual contamination that put consumers at serious risk. Real Water was marketed as a premium alkaline water brand, promising to balance your body's pH and deliver superior hydration. Sold in distinctive blue bottles, it built a loyal following, especially in Nevada and California, where health-conscious consumers were willing to pay top dollar for what they believed was a superior product. But in March 2021, the FDA issued an urgent warning that sent shockwaves through the industry. Real Water was linked to multiple cases of acute non-viral hepatitis, a severe liver condition. 5 children and several adults were hospitalized after consuming the product, with symptoms including fatigue, vomiting, and jaundice. 1 infant required a liver transplant. The FDA's investigation revealed that Real Water's proprietary ionization process was creating dangerous chemical compounds never meant for human consumption. Independent laboratory analysis detected high levels of hydrazine, a toxic chemical used in rocket fuel and industrial processing. Hydrazine is classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a probable human carcinogen, and acute exposure can cause liver damage, respiratory failure, and neurological harm. How did rocket fuel byproducts end up in a consumer water product? The answer lies in Real Water's unregulated manufacturing process. The company used an electrical ionization system to alter the water's pH, claiming it created extra electrons for better height. But chemists who reviewed the process said it was scientifically dubious at best, and at worst, created unstable chemical reactions that generated toxins. The FDA found that Real Water had no proper testing protocols in place to verify safety distribution. Even more disturbing, internal documents revealed that the company had received consumer complaints about adverse health effects months before the outbreak, but failed to investigate or issue warnings. According to court filings, at least 17 complaints describing nausea, vomiting, and fatigue were submitted between late 2020 and early 2021. The company dismissed them as isolated incidents. The fallout was swift. Real Water was forced to recall all products nationwide, and the company ultimately ceased operations entirely. But for the families affected, the damage was done. Medical experts testified that some victims would face lifelong liver complications, all because they trusted a brand that promised health benefit but delivered poison instead. This case exposes a critical gap in regulation. Unlike tap water, which is tested multiple times per day under strict EPA standards, bottled water manufacturers can operate with minimal oversight, especially if they claim proprietary processes. Real Water exploited that loophole with devastating consequences. And if toxic chemicals weren't alarming enough, the next brand shows how even natural spring water can hide dangerous secrets. Because when it comes to bottled water, the source matters just as much as what's added during processing. Poland Spring has been an American staple for over 175 years, with packaging that proudly features Maine's natural landscape and promises of 100% natural spring water. For generations, consumers have trusted that they were drinking pure water sourced directly from pristine underground springs. But a landmark lawsuit filed in 2017 revealed something shocking. Poland Spring may not be spring water at all. The class action lawsuit, backed by extensive hydrogeological analysis, argued that the water labeled as spring water was actually being extracted from man-made wells and surface-level collection sites that do not meet the FDA's legal definition of a spring. According to the complaint, at least 6 of Poland Spring's 8 sources were ordinary groundwater sites, not natural. Here's why that matters. The FDA defines spring water as water that flows naturally to the surface from an underground source. It must be collected at the spring or through a borehole that taps the same underground formation. But expert witnesses, including licensed hydrogeologists, testified that several Poland Spring sites were simply drilled wells in areas that once had springs decades ago, but no longer do. Independent testing revealed additional concerns. Samples from Poland Spring showed elevated levels of PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. These are synthetic compounds used in industrial manufacturing that contaminate groundwater and do not break down naturally. PFAS exposure has been linked to cancer, thyroid disease, and immune system damage. While the detected levels were below federal limits, critics point out that no amount of PFAS is truly safe, and consumers buying natural spring water expect zero industrial contamination. Nestlé, Poland Spring's parent company, vigorously denied the allegations, claiming all their sources meet regulatory definitions. But tellingly, they settled the lawsuit in 2021 for $1.425 million without admitting wrongdoing. As part of the settlement, they agreed to add more detailed source information to their labels, but the damage to consumer trust was already done. Market research showed that following the lawsuit, Poland Spring's sales declined by nearly 12% in key markets, with many consumers switching to competitors or returning to tap water. And yet, the brand continues to sell hundreds of millions of bottles annually because most buyers never heard about the lawsuit or simply don't care. The bigger question is this: if one of America's most iconic water brands can misrepresent its source for years, what does that say about industry oversight? The answer is troubling. The FDA has fewer than a dozen inspectors responsible for monitoring the entire bottled water industry, while municipal tap water is tested far more frequently and transparently. But if fake spring water and contamination weren't enough, the next brand reveals an entirely different kind of deception, one that targets your wallet while delivering absolutely nothing extra for your money. Dasani, Coca-Cola's entry into the bottled water market, is sold in over 200 countries and generates billions in revenue every year. The brand markets itself as purified water enhanced with minerals for taste. That sounds premium, scientific, and beneficial. But here's the truth most consumers never realize. Dasani is municipal tap water with a few cents worth of added salt. Yes, You read that correctly. The minerals Dasani adds, magnesium sulfate, potassium chloride, and salt, cost the company less than 1 cent per bottle. These aren't rare, health-boosting minerals. They're basic compounds used to slightly alter the taste, so Dasani doesn't taste flat. But by calling them added minerals, Coca-Cola creates the illusion of a premium product. In the UK, this marketing backfired spectacularly. In 2004, Dasani was forced to recall its entire product line after tests revealed that the purification process actually added bromate, a cancer-linked chemical, at levels exceeding legal safety limits. The contamination occurred because Coca-Cola's ozonation process reacted with the added bromide, creating bromate as a byproduct. The scandal was so damaging that Dasani never returned to the UK market. But in the United States, Dasani continues to thrive, largely because American consumers are less aware of the UK debacle. Independent taste tests by Consumer Reports consistently rank Dasani as one of the worst-tasting bottled waters, with testers describing it as salty, chemical, and metallic. Yet it remains one of the top sellers, purely because of Coca-Cola's distribution power and aggressiveness. The pricing strategy is particularly Dasani is often sold at the same price or higher than true spring water brand. At convenience stores, a 20-ounce bottle of Dasani costs around $1.99, identical to brands sourced from actual springs. But the production cost for Dasani is a fraction of spring water because there's no sourcing or transportation from remote locations. They simply tap into local municipal water, filter it, add cheap mineral, and bottle it. Consumer advocacy groups have called this a psychological. By branding tap water as something enhanced and special, Coca-Cola convinces millions of people to pay for a product they could get virtually free from their own farm. And because the label says purified and minerals added, buyers assume it's healthier or safer. But multiple studies have shown that in cities with modern water treatment, tap water quality matches or exceeds. What makes this even more frustrating is the environmental. Every Dasani bottle requires petroleum-based plastic, energy for production and transportation, and contributes to landfill waste. All of this for a product that offers zero tangible benefit for tap water. And if the mineral scam wasn't bad enough, the next brand on our list shows how even products marketed to children and families can hide shocking contamination that no one saw coming. Niagara Bottling operates as a private label supplier, meaning they produce bottled water for dozens of major retailers, including Walmart's Great Value, 7-Eleven, Safeway, and Whole Foods' 365 brand. Chances are you've consumed Niagara water without even knowing it. And in 2015, that became a serious problem. The FDA and CDC launched an urgent investigation after reports of cryptosporidium contamination at one of Niagara's Pennsylvania facilities. Cryptosporidium is a microscopic parasite that causes severe gastrointestinal illness, including debilitating diarrhea, stomach cramps, and dehydration. For people with weakened immune systems, children, and the elderly, it can be life-threatening. The contamination triggered one of the largest bottled water recalls in U.S. history, affecting 14 brands sold across multiple states. Millions of bottles were pulled from shelves, but by that time, countless consumers had already ingested the contaminated water. Public health departments in Pennsylvania and Ohio reported a spike in cryptosporidium cases during the outbreak period, though it's impossible to know the exact number linked specifically to Niagara. So how did this happen? Investigations revealed that Niagara's facility experienced a failure in its UV disinfection system, which is designed to kill parasites like cryptosporidium. But here's the disturbing part. The company continued bottling and distributing water for days before the contamination was detected. Internal quality control protocols failed to catch the problem, and it only came to light after consumers reported illnesses and local health officials connected the dots. Even more troubling, Niagara had been cited multiple times in previous years for sanitation violations at various facilities. FDA inspection reports documented issues ranging from inadequate equipment maintenance to poor water testing procedures. These weren't isolated mistakes. They were signs of a systemic problem with oversight and accountability. For consumers, the recall exposed a harsh reality. When you buy private label bottled water, you have no idea which facility produced it, what standards were followed, or whether quality control is being taken seriously. Unlike major brands with their reputations on the line, private label suppliers operate in relative obscurity, making it easier for problems to go unnoticed until disaster strikes. Since the 2015 outbreak, Niagara has claimed to improve its safety, but consumer confidence never fully recovered. Market data shows that sales of private label bottled water declined sharply in affected regions. with many shoppers switching to branded alternatives or simply avoiding bottled water altogether. And yet, Niagara remains one of the largest bottled water producers in North America, quietly supplying water to millions of people every day. The question is, have the lessons been learned? Or is this just another recall waiting to happen? But if parasites in your water weren't alarming enough, the next brand reveals a contamination so widespread and dangerous that it affects nearly every bottle on the shelf. Because this time, the problem isn't what's in the water, it's what's leaching from the plastic itself. FIJI Water is marketed as the pinnacle of purity, sourced from an underground aquifer in the remote Fiji Islands and bottled at the source, untouched by human hands. The brand's tagline, "Untouched by man," and its premium pricing, often $3 or more per bottle, position it as one of the most elite bottled waters on the market. Celebrities endorse it, luxury hotels stock it, and consumers pay top dollar believing they're drinking the purest water on Earth. But in 2018, a bombshell study published by researchers at the State University of New York at Fredonia shattered that illusion. The study tested 11 popular bottled water brands for microplastic contamination, and FIJI Water ranked among the worst. Samples revealed an average of 300 microplastic particles per liter, some bottles containing as many as 500 particles. Microplastics are tiny plastic fragments, smaller than 5 millimeters, often invisible to the naked eye, that break off from packaging or enter water during production. Scientists are increasingly concerned about their health effects. Studies have shown that microplastics can accumulate in the digestive system, interfere with hormone function, and potentially carry toxic chemicals directly into human tissues. The irony is staggering. FIJI Water spends millions promoting the pristine, untouched nature of its source. Yet the moment it's sealed in a plastic bottle, it becomes contaminated with the very material it's packaged in. Independent researchers found that the type of plastic particles in FIJI match the composition of the bottle itself, meaning the contamination occurs after bottling, likely due to heat, light exposure, or the bottling process. When confronted with these findings, FIJI Water issued a statement claiming their product met all regulatory standards. But here's the problem. There are no regulatory standards for microplastics in bottled water. The FDA has no established limits, no testing requirements, and no labeling mandates. Companies are essentially operating in an unregulated gray zone. What makes FIJI's case particularly frustrating is the premium price. Consumers are paying 3 to 4 times more than standard bottled water, expecting something extraordinarily pure. Instead, they're getting one of the highest microplastic counts in the industry. If anything, the expensive packaging and long-distance shipping, FIJI bottles travel over 5,000 miles from the Pacific to U.S. stores, likely increase exposure to heat and light, worsening the contamination. Environmental scientists have called bottled water's microplastic problem an invisible epidemic. A 2021 study by Orb Media found that 93% of all bottled water samples tested globally contained microplastic contamination, with an average of 325 particles per liter. FIJI was far from alone. But as a premium brand charging premium prices, the betrayal especially, and it's not just FIJI. The same study found high levels in nearly every major brand, from Evian to Nestlé. The inescapable truth is, when you drink bottled water, you're almost certainly consuming plastic particles along with it. And unlike tap water, which flows through metal, or bottled water sits in plastic for days, weeks, or even months before you drink it, giving microplastics ample time to leach. But if microscopic plastic contamination wasn't disturbing enough, the final brand on this list exposes perhaps the most brazen deception of all, a company that built its empire on a lie so bold, so pervasive, that it rewrote the rules of how bottled water could be marketed. And when the truth finally came out, it revealed just how little oversight exists to protect consumers. Nestlé Pure Life is one of the best-selling bottled water brands in the world, available in over 50 countries and generating billions in annual revenue. The company sources water from dozens of locations, often promoting local partnerships and environmental stewardship. But behind the glossy marketing lies a pattern of exploitation, environmental damage, and outright illegal activity that has sparked lawsuits, protests, and government investigations on multiple continents. In California, Nestlé faced years of legal battles over its water extraction practices in the San Bernardino National Forest. Investigative journalists discovered that the company had been siphoning water from Strawberry Creek using permits that expired in 1988. For over 30 years, Nestlé continued extracting millions of gallons annually without valid authorization, all while California suffered through historic droughts. Environmental groups and local residents filed complaints with the U.S. Forest Service, but it took years for authorities to take action. During that time, Nestlé bottled and sold water taken from public lands without proper permits, profiting from a resource that legally belonged to the public. When finally confronted, the company's response was to claim they had been operating in good faith while permit renewals were pending. But documents showed Nestlé had made little effort to resolve the permit issue, simply continuing operations and hoping no one would notice. In Michigan, the situation was even more egregious. Nestlé's Ice Mountain brand drew water from aquifers near the town of Osceola Township, extracting over 400 gallons per minute. Local residents reported that their private wells began running dry, streams lost flow, and wetlands started disappearing. Despite overwhelming evidence of environmental harm, Michigan's government allowed Nestlé to continue operations under a permit that cost the company just $200 per year. Yes, you read that correctly. Nestlé paid $200 annually to extract millions of gallons of water, bottle it, and sell it back to consumers for billions in profit. Public outrage reached a boiling point when it was revealed that Flint, Michigan, just hours away, was still struggling with lead-contaminated tap water while Nestlé freely pumped clean water for corporate profit. In Pakistan, Nestlé Pure Life faced accusations of exploiting impoverished communities by extracting groundwater in regions where locals lacked access to clean drinking water. Investigative reports documented villages surrounding Nestlé's facilities where residents had to walk miles to fetch water, while trucks filled with bottled Nestlé Pure Life drove past them daily. The ethical contradiction was inescapable. The company was literally taking water from communities in desperate need and selling it elsewhere. The environmental toll is staggering. Hydrologists have warned that Nestlé's large-scale extractions contribute to aquifer depletion, reduce stream flows, and ecosystem damage. Once an aquifer is depleted, it can take decades or even centuries to recover. But Nestlé's business model depends on accessing the cheapest possible water sources, often in regions with weak regulatory oversight, and extracting as much as possible before public backlash forces them to move on. When pressed on these issues, Nestlé has consistently defended its practices as legal and compliant with local regulations. But critics argue the company exploits loopholes, lobbies against stricter water use law, and uses its financial power to outlast community opposition. And when lawsuits or public pressure become too intense, Nestlé simply rebrands. In 2021, the company sold its North American bottled water brands to One Rock Capital Partners, effectively distancing itself from decades of controversy while continuing to profit globally under different names. The lesson here is clear. When you buy Nestlé Pure Life, you're not just purchasing water. You're participating in a system that prioritizes corporate profit over environmental sustainability, community rights, and ethical resource management. And the most disturbing part? It's all perfectly legal, because water laws in most regions were written long before industrial-scale bottling became a billion-dollar industry. So, what have we uncovered? From Aquafina's repackaged tap water to Real Water's toxic contamination, from Poland Springs' fake springs to Dasani's mineral scam, from Niagara's parasite outbreak to Fiji's microplastic nightmare, and finally to Nestlé's illegal water theft. One truth stands out. The bottled water industry is not what it claims to be. Behind the pristine labels and promises of purity lies a world of deception, environmental destruction, and regulatory failure. Brands we've trusted for years have quietly cut corners, misled consumers, and in some cases, sold products that cause serious harm, all in the pursuit of profit. And here's the bigger question. If this is happening with something as simple and universal as water, what else are we being lied to about? How many other everyday products are hiding secrets we'll only discover years from now? The reality is that tap water in most developed countries is cleaner, more rigorously tested, and far more transparent than the bottled alternatives. It doesn't come with plastic waste, corporate exploitation, or marketing deception. It's just water. And maybe that's exactly what we should be drinking. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who deserves to know the truth. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next investigation into the hidden corners of everyday life. Together, we can pull back the curtain on what's really happening behind the brands we trust.